couple of facts about AppCard. AppCard processes 700 million transactions a year. Currently, we are in 1 in 8 households with over 20 million shoppers. Over 4,000 merchants are currently using AppCard, and we have about 100 company employees. I am based out of the New York office, and we have a second office in Delray Beach, Florida, and a third office in Tel Aviv. And you are all familiar with Retail Pro. Retail Pro has over 9,000 brands that they work with in over 130 countries. And here are some of their customers. So what is AppCard? A lot of you are familiar with AppCard already, but we'll go over this again. AppCard is a CRM, a loyalty and rewards platform, an email marketing and text messaging tool all in one. We are fully integrated with every version of Retail Pro and can provide some artificial intelligence-powered marketing capabilities. We are a flexible platform that allows you to create custom programs depending on your industry and business type. We do pair you up with a dedicated success manager here at AppCard to support you throughout. And we also have a digital storefront in a shopper-facing app so that your customers can keep track of their points and punches and purchases. My name is Paloma Kim, and I've gotten to know a lot of you in the last year and a half when I've been focusing more on working with Retail Pro customers. On the agenda today will be lifecycle marketing, data-powered and personalized marketing automation, as well as how we can actually measure campaign success and return on investment. So using data-driven marketing. I wanted to set the stage for today's presentation by talking about data. So everybody has heard that phrase, data is king. And well, in the last few years, we've really taken this cliche to heart. In the last 2 years specifically, mankind has created more data than all previous human history combined. This is a staggering fact to contemplate, and let me say this one more time. 90% of data in human history was created in the last 2 years. We create 2.5 quintillion bytes of data each day, and this volume is estimated to increase exponentially over the next 5 years. While these are certainly vertigo-inducing statistics, the real question that we need to ask are, what does all this data tell us? How do we make it manageable, and what can we actually do with it? Let's take a look at some of the data points here to animate these questions and lead us to those answers. 40,000 Google searches are executed every second. So this data could tell us a lot about consumer trends, such as what brands are hot and in demand, as well as maybe what styles and genres people are interested in. 258,751 is spent on Amazon every minute. So this data can tell us something a little bit different. It can tell us what brands, what styles, and genres people are actually willing to pull their wallets out for. 120 people per minute create LinkedIn profiles. And as you all know, LinkedIn is a place where professionals list their job titles of places of work, along with how long that they worked there. From this data, we can estimate the income and likely stored wealth of individuals and what markets they are located in. This would tell us who can afford maybe higher-end products and services, as well as who cannot. So there's a lot that each one of these data points can tell us about our shoppers. I could assume that buying books on Tesla could mean that she's interested in a car, or it could just be that that person is interested in maybe Tesla stock, or maybe simply just that technology. From her Google searches, we could assume that she needs a car and that she's looking for something high-end. Or I could also assume that this might just be a car lover, somebody that's not in the market for a car, or even if she has the money for one. From LinkedIn, I can see that this person is a lawyer, which means that she has a higher end income than the general population, but that's all that it really tells me. For all I know, this person has no interest in the auto and no desire to spend on anything. All of these data points are valuable in their own right, as singular data points that carry too much of those or statements with too many outcomes that are too different to formulate a really targeted marketing effort. The real marketing magic happens when you take all of these data points and create a singular shopper profile that's going to tell you a much more detailed story. So let's think of it this way. Let's think of it more like baking a cake, where you have sugar, eggs, milk, etc. Separately, these ingredients have value, but together they have infinitely more value. They're no longer ingredients, but they're more of a greater story that is your shopper. So let's take a quick look at what we can do with some of these data points, but this time mix them together to create a singular profile. Separately, each of these data points allowed us to draw a number of different but equally plausible conclusions about the shopper, making it a relative guess as to what the data was really telling us. Now, if we combine the data points into a singular profile, we can start to paint a very specific picture of the shopper. So in this case, we know this is Kim Johnson. We know her occupation, which tells us what her income bracket is. We also know where she lives, and we know her interests. Her profile now tells us that we should be placing high-end car advertisements in front of her. We know she has interests, and we know she can afford it, but we also know where she lives, so we can even direct her to her local dealership. By combining all of this data points that we have collected about Kim, we can create a highly targeted and personalized marketing plan that targets Kim with products and services that she'll likely respond to. So the question then is, why is personalizing communication to Kim important? As it turns out, when you personalize content to shoppers and provide them with marketing that is relevant to their interests, you end up with a much higher conversion rate and revenue growth. 53% of retailers reported an increase of more than 10% in conversion rates, lead generation, and revenue growth. 170% increase in purchase rate of personalized product recommendations compared to non-personalized product recommendations. So let's stop here for a second, as I know everyone understood that first statistic. This one is a bit more interesting. When we think about marketing, most of us think about stuff like sending out an email blast, maybe a direct mail piece, a radio ad, or a TV spot. So these forms of traditional marketing are better known as saturation marketing. And the name really says it all. So traditional marketing relied on touching as many people as possible, knowing that the conversion rate would be low. So you had to saturate the market with your message, hoping that it reached the right people. This statistic is showing us an almost twofold increase in customer conversions as a result of putting the right content in front of the right shoppers. This is all made possible through data collection and analysis. In a few slides, we'll show you how you can take this work in your stores and automate it so you can spend time on other elements of your business that actually require your attention. One final point to know is 35% of Amazon's revenue is created through their recommendation engine. These are those ads that you see when you go to Amazon.com at the bottom of the page. They're using your own transaction history to personalize recommendations to you. Amazon is collecting data on you, personalizing your marketing content, and generating 35% of its sales as a result. So now let's talk about the opportunity. Only about 2% of offline retailers, brick and mortar stores, are collecting data, analyzing that data, and using it to create a personalized experience for their shoppers, which is super crazy to me. But what I'm going to do now is pass it over to Andrew Ostroff, who runs our consulting and customer success teams at AppCard, so that he can talk with you a little bit more about the opportunity and some of the things that we can use this data for.
Hello, everyone. It's Andrew Ostroff. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you now. All right. So data-driven marketing in retail. We're going to go over the segmentation piece. Columbus, thank you very much for setting the stage there with the amount of data that there is available to businesses out in the marketplace today. Talk a little bit more about what that opportunity looks like in your own stores. And then we're going to talk about how you can use that data to launch an effective marketing strategy and personalize content to customers on day one. So what is the opportunity? So this is some pretty interesting information that a lot of people don't realize yet. So retail is a $5 trillion industry annually. $450 billion of that $5 trillion was spent online. A lot of people don't realize that in the retail industry, 90% of retail purchases, 90% of that $5 trillion is still happening in brick and mortar stores. 10% is happening online at this point. Now, 10% is not a small number, and it is growing, certainly, but 90% of all transactions and all money flow through retail is happening in the brick and mortar scene. Now, to be fair, 80% of retail purchases happen offline if you exclude car purchases, grocery, and gas stations, but 80% is still a very large number there. So this means that 80% of retail-related data is created in your stores, offline, not using the internet, not through Amazon. So moving into this, just to kind of further cement that concept, retailers are growing. Even Amazon is going offline. In fact, I didn't put this in the presentation, but I did read an article yesterday about Amazon and their grocery store move. Amazon is actually going to be starting opening its own grocery stores outside of the Whole Foods network, which is going to be a big play on brick and mortar grocery retail. But looking at this list here, you'll recognize some of these names, and this is going from 2018 all the way through 2020 and what's expected to be open, what's been announced by some major companies out there. You're looking at Ulta Beauty, 100 new locations in 2018, brick and mortar stores. Dollar General, which is one I think we can all recognize, 900 new locations were opened in 2018. These are brick and mortar stores for retail. Target even opened 32 new locations in 2018. Dick's Sporting Goods competes with Sports Authority, 20 new locations in 2018. And the Gap, part of the family with Banana Republic, opened 70 new locations by 2020. That's their plan. So brick and mortar isn't going anywhere. 90% of the world's data from a retail perspective is flowing through those brick and mortar stores today. So that is the opportunity. That's the way the market is going. And even some of these big guys, including Amazon, are opening up additional brick and mortar locations and realizing that brick and mortar has a life in the future. It's not all going to go online. That Amazon is, at this point, opening brick and mortar stores of its own and testing out what kind of experience to give the customer. And that's the key to this. Old brick and mortar retail experiences are dying out. And you're seeing new versions of the brick and mortar retail experience start to come alive. And that experience is going to have to do with how customers experience the retail brand itself. And that's going to come down to personalization, something that we all demand nowadays. So your business is part of this brick and mortar retail move and the 90% of data that's being created at the moment. So here's some things that your business today is actually creating as far as data is concerned. Products and services sold, you know what you guys are bringing in. Products and services returned, gives you a lot of insight as to how frequently people are coming back in and returning specific brands or items. Revenue by the minute, day, week, and quarter gives you an idea of what the foot traffic looks like inside and outside your store. Frequency of purchase, how many times does a customer come in and make a purchase each week, each month, each quarter, or each year? Number of shoppers per day, basket analysis, repurchase cycles, average transaction value, customer identity. Customer identity becomes a very important piece of data that you do generate. That's one thing that a lot of businesses at this point in time don't capture very frequently. But customer identity can be captured in a number of different ways. If you're capturing a customer's email to email them a receipt, you have a unique identifier about them now. That email address is something that only they will use. A phone number that you might enter into the system for them. That phone number is also unique to that customer and can be used as a unique identifier for customer identity. Their birthday is also another piece of information that can become wildly valuable when you talk about personalization. From the customer's age, so you know what types of products they might be interested in the future, to personalizing content to make them feel a bigger connection with your business by sending them some type of note on their birthday that says, happy birthday. Their home address in Retail Pro, this is a field that you can capture, and it's something that does translate over into the AppCard CRM, so that you can actually start to look at where your customers live and how far they're willing to travel for your services or products. Many, many more as well. Excuse me. So some of the ways that you guys may be capturing this, which is pretty common today, for email address, a lot of businesses will use third-party email providers like MailChimp, Constant Contact, and I've even seen a few businesses that are out there collecting this type of information through Excel spreadsheets. Sales information, through the point of sale or e-commerce provider, third parties like Amazon, Grubhub, Seamless, eBay, if you were a QSR or own a QSR business, which is a quick service restaurant. Phone numbers. Some businesses are actually using SMS as a communication channel at this point, and they're collecting phone numbers through texting services that they've purchased. Swift Text, Easy Text, Nexmo, Trumpia, even a CRM of your own that you're using a short code through. Shopper purchase history through your POS and through your e-commerce, which we went over in the last slide there. Now, all of this information is extremely valuable, and as Paloma said, it's like baking a cake. Separately, these pieces of information are useful to your business. Collecting emails and sending them through MailChimp allows you to target people through the channel of email. Collecting phone numbers separately through Swift Text or Easy Text or another provider allows you to text message customers, which is a very important statistic actually when it comes to communication. 9 out of 10 people will read a text message within 7 minutes of receiving it, so it makes it a very valuable communication channel between you and your customer. Sales information, you're catching that through your point of sale. Shopper purchase history, you're also getting that through e-commerce and your POS. So separately, all of these have value. But it's when we start to put them together that we actually start to really gain a lot of value out of all of these data points. And a system like AppCard is designed to work in such a way that allows you to capture all of these different data points, from the shopper's identity to the communication channels that you're going to need to use to communicate with those shoppers once you have that identity, to the transaction data that will inform you with what the customer would most likely be interested in based on their past behavior patterns, as well as their transaction history. So how do you do this with a system like AppCard and Retail Pro? It's been a beautiful marriage between the two companies and the two technology platforms. And really what you end up getting is AppCard provides you with tools to capture a customer's identity and append that information with transaction data, as well as communication channels such as email and text message. Through the Retail Pro connection that we have, Retail Pro provides that all-important transaction data. And now we know that Jessica Smith, what she likes to purchase for her pets. We know that she's going to go in and she's going to buy toys for the pet, so we can recommend different chew toys. We know that the favorite brand of dog food that she's buying for her dog is Blue Buffalo, which means that we probably wouldn't be sending her promotions via email or text message for Origin dog food, for example, or Pedigree, or Kibbles and Bits, because that's not her brand, and that may seem like spam to her. But with the connection between AppCard and Retail Pro, we're able to build a very complete profile of her, identify her through a phone number or an email address, append transaction information that allows us to personalize our communication with her moving forward. And it allows us to increase the conversion rates from your marketing efforts to your customers, increasing the number of transactions that they do throughout the month, quarter, or year, as well as increasing the transaction size. Now we're going to get into an interesting piece on this. Now, AppCard and Retail Pro are an evolving system. What this system will look like on day 1 is very different than what it's going to look like in month 6, and even more different than it's going to look at month 12. Now, when you first start out with a system like this and hearing everything that we've just talked about, it can seem pretty overwhelming. It can seem like there is too much to do, too much to learn, and you really feel like you're going to need a lot of help getting started. So what we're here to talk about today is what we call life cycle marketing. And life cycle marketing is a concept that you can target customers right off the bat at the bottom of that buying cycle. Now, anybody who's been involved with a marketing class in their history and their education will recognize this triangle to the right. It's a buying cycle. And the idea is that you really want to be dropping a message to a customer that incentivizes a purchase when they're almost ready to make that purchase or they are right about to make that purchase. You don't want to hit somebody with a marketing message that came into your store 24 hours ago, because it really won't have a lot of utility for them. And it will seem like spam no matter how personalized it is. So what we do with something like lifecycle marketing is we're going to use the customer's identity and their transaction history, recent transaction history, to target them when we know they're very likely to make their next purchase. The way that we do that is we will take the customer's identity through the loyalty program AppCard connected with Retail Pro. We'll take the transaction from Retail Pro that we've now appended with that identity, and we'll know that this customer just bought a pair of kids' socks. Now, we know that the average life cycle of a pair of socks for kids is usually about 4 months before they wear holes in them, and the parents will need to go and make another purchase for socks. So what we'll do is we'll actually set up automations that allow us to identify the customer, identify the actual item they purchased, and then automatically in 4 months from the purchase of that particular pair of kids' socks, if we see that they haven't purchased them again yet, it will send them a personalized message saying, looks like it's time for a new pair of kids' socks. Here's 10% off if we see you by Friday. Now, everything in your store in a retailer's business will have an average life cycle, a cycle of time which normal people would need to come in and make a repurchase of that particular item. And we can set up automations on day one before the system even launches that allows you to personalize this content to people based on that individual item purchase. So bras might take 6 months as an average life cycle. And what we'll do is anybody who purchases a bra on day one, if they haven't made the repurchase of that bra by month 6, the system would automatically send an email or a text message to them with an incentive to purchase a new bra. Same thing for leggings. Maternity clothing would be a 9-month cycle for us. Sports bras would be 6 months, and athletic shirts might be 6 months as well. Now, this can go for pretty much any item in your store, and it's part of the process that we'll go through once you get started, is to sit down with you and really get a better understanding of what your product sets look like and what the average life cycles are. Now, this can get granular as well. So let's say that you are a shoe store and you carry flip-flops. Now, I'm not a big flip-flop guy myself, but I have a little bit of experience working with flip-flop stores in recent months and years. And I do know that the flip-flops are not all created equally. There's actually flip-flops that cost $100 out there, which blows my mind, but it's true. When you buy a $100 pair of flip-flops, you probably don't need to replace those very often. In fact, it might be a 12-month cycle depending on the wear and tear. But what we'll do is we'll set it up so that anybody who purchases the $100 pair of flip-flops, Rainbows or Chinooks or whatever the brand is that you carry, 12 months from that purchase, if they haven't purchased a new pair of flip-flops, they'll get an automated message saying, it looks like you might need to get a new pair of flip-flops. Here's 10% off of your next pair of $100 flip-flops. Put a time limit on it, so they have to come in by the following week, 7 days, to make that transaction and upgrade to flip-flops. Now, we have a sub-layer of flip-flops, those that are not very expensive, the type that you might buy to wear to the gym. And these are maybe $20, $25 flip-flops. The average life cycle for a less expensive pair might be 4 months. And of course, if you're using those every day at the gym, that wear and tear is going to happen much quicker. So 4 months, any flip-flop that is less than the larger item flip-flop, you would get a reminder to upgrade and purchase a new pair of cheaper flip-flops because the life cycle is going to be that much smaller. So life cycle marketing, set up an automation. I mentioned that once you get started, we're going to sit down with you and we're going to go through your products. We do this through what we call a kickoff meeting, where we're going to set up some time with you and we're going to go through your product list and we're going to start setting up automations based on the life cycles that we know about and the ones that you inform us of. This is some examples of how that might look. So come visit us at your store name for $5 off your next pair of running shoes. Now, running shoes typically last about 6 months. If you're running 3 miles a day, 5 days a week, they recommend that you replace your running shoes every 6 months. So this would be a really excellent one that's pretty safe to say works well. Ready for a fresh start this winter? This one I really like a lot because you can do it like this in a couple of different ways, both automated and as the season approaches. So what we would do here is we would look at anybody who buys a winter coat from you, and 12 months later, if we don't see another winter coat purchase, we send them an incentive to purchase a winter coat. You have 300 points at your business. Stop by to pick up a free dress shirt with your next purchase. So the next thing we will do is we'll look at things like dress shirts. And the average dress shirt probably needs to be replaced every 4 to 5 months in our experience. So people who are purchasing dress shirts and wearing them to work a couple of days a week, they'll get an incentive to come back in and upgrade their wardrobe with a new dress shirt 5 months after the original purchase. So lastly, before I hand this back over to my colleague Paloma here, I had mentioned earlier in this presentation that there are 3 distinct evolutions of marketing and that we don't look the same on day 1 as we do in month 6 or in month 12. This is what that process looks like. So in month 1, when you first get started with us, we do initial marketing recommendations, and this is where life cycle marketing comes into play. We're going to set up automations that are personalized to customers based on very few data points, but very valuable ones: their identity, the actual item they purchased, and the average life cycle of that particular item. As we move through to month 6, we're going to have sufficient data at this point to really start to analyze the DNA of your business. And when I say the DNA of your business, we're going to know more about the average transaction size, how customers are reacting and being influenced by different promotions that you've been running, different life cycle options that have happened. And at this point, we're going to do a big deep dive with you. We're going to sit down and schedule a 45-minute to an hour-long presentation where we're going to go through your data with you. And we're going to look and see what opportunities may be present for us to set up new automations based on the basket analysis and how customers have been interacting and what the behaviors look like. Another 6 months takes us into month 12, and Paloma's going to go over this in a little bit more detail in just a moment, but month 12 is the final evolution of the marketing system. This is where Pinky actually comes into play. Now, Pinky is the nickname for our artificially intelligent marketing system that autonomously and automatically makes marketing decisions for you by communicating with customers on their transaction histories. So Pinky will come in and it will look and it will say, Andrew Ostroff on average is purchasing a new pair of running shoes every 182 days. Okay, so he's bought 2 pairs, the average is 182 days. Okay, Pinky now expects to see me in 182 days from now to buy a new pair of running shoes. That's my buying cycle, that's what Pinky understands about me. If I don't show up on the 182nd day, automatically on the 183rd day, Pinky will know that I'm very likely in the market for a new pair of running shoes and will proactively reach out to me and give me a 10% off or whatever we decide is appropriate to come in and buy a new pair of running shoes, because it knows that I've been in that buying cycle twice. I've been at the funnel end of that every 180 days, and I'm very, very likely at this point to need that. Pinky will automatically do that for us. So that's where we are at month 12. And then moving forward, we continue to consult you as data comes in, and we set up usually quarterly meetings to discuss any opportunities that we start seeing that present themselves in the data feeds. So at this point, I am going to turn this back over to Paloma. She's going to talk to you a little bit more about how the campaign ROI works. So, we are talking a lot about targeting and a lot about personalization and how wonderful that is. What you really need to know is how much money does that put back in your bank account. Paloma's going to go over how that works and how you can measure not only the number of people that responded to any particular personalization that we've developed, but also how much money they actually spent as a result. So Paloma, I'll turn this back over to you now. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew. So yes, let's talk about how we can actually measure the campaign ROI now. This is the fun part. So suppose that you choose to implement a system and strategy like AppCard, and you want to identify your shoppers, you want to track their purchases, and you want to be able to segment them into groups and send them these highly relevant marketing content. So how do you know that it actually worked? This is a question that all marketers hate, and traditionally it's been very difficult to prove ROI. So not anymore. With a system like this, you have all the ingredients and tools that you need to answer this question and with confidence. You have the shopper's identity, you have a list of shoppers that actually receive the marketing content, and you have the ability to not only track which ones came back to the store, but also what they purchased and how much they spent as a result. So for instance, you can target 3,000 shoppers that bought a pair of tennis shoes and send them 10% off their next pair, and track that 378 of them actually came back in and made a purchase. You can then see that the 378 people spent $4,719 as a result. So now you can actually quantify to the penny exactly how much revenue your customers have spent as a result. there will always be somebody that asks, well, how do I know that this person came in because of the text message or the email and they didn't just come in maybe because they walked by the store? So the answer to that is control groups. So one of the most powerful ways to prove marketing ROI is to be able to identify a control group along with your target audience. A control group is basically a set of people who fit the criteria that you've assigned to the campaign, but whom you do not want to send the offer to. So at the end of the marketing campaign, you can then compare how the members of the campaign performed from a visit and revenue perspective against the control group who received nothing. This is how you can truly determine whether your marketing offer and messaging had an impact on the target audience. Andrew briefly spoke about Pinky, but Pinky analyzes your transaction data in real time daily. Using your company's transaction history, Pinky can forecast your likely revenue by market up to 30 days in the future. The forecast will help you to make staffing arrangements by location. It can also help to predict inventory and budgetary requirements. And Pinky now averages a 2.5% margin of error, making this revenue forecast more accurate than Facebook's neural network tool. So using AI to optimize marketing. We'll take this basically a step further, and Pinky can analyze campaign results, including lift from the control group to optimize the campaign targeting. So this basically means that AppCard's AI will learn your shopper habits in conjunction with the responsiveness to the campaigns to actually deliver the right message at the right time to the right customer. In this real-life example from one of our retailers, Pinky targeted customers who missed a predicted visit with an offer for $1 off on their next visit. Within 1 week of the text message campaign, 68% of shoppers visited the store to redeem their discount. And here I just wanted to briefly chat with you guys about the integration with Retail Pro itself. So we are fully integrated with versions 8, 9, and Prism, and the enrollment is very easy. So the cashier just has to add an item to the transaction, and once you download AppCard, you'll have an AppCard rewards button appearing at the point of sale. So you can tap that button and then put in the customer's phone number and continue on with business as usual. The tender type won't matter, cash, credit, or debit. Now, a lot of you guys do have a CRM with phone numbers and emails and addresses. If you already have the customer's phone number in the profile of the CRM, we can automatically generate that phone number into the AppCard rewards box so that you don't have to manually type it in. Another awesome feature of AppCard, which I really love because I'm always using my receipts, is that your customers will now receive a digital copy of their receipt sent directly to their phone. And they'll have an itemized receipt, which we can customize with your branded logos and colors. And at the bottom, it will always tell them how many points they earned. And there's a couple of different things we can do here to gather some feedback from your customers. If you wanted to do a simple thumbs up or a thumbs down, you could do that, as well as you can actually ask them up to 5 individual questions. We'll talk about our single customer database. And what this means is that I often speak to retailers who have that Retail Pro CRM within the point of sale. Maybe they have a current loyalty program that they're using. They have another database in MailChimp and Constant Contact, and possibly even a fourth in a current SMS provider. So AppCard is actually able to take all of that customer information and upload it into our cloud-based computing dashboard so that you have all your information in one place. We then begin to append the transactions from Retail Pro as customers begin to come in and make purchases so that we'll create these shopper identities, which we can then use the information to inform text, emails, and push notifications with the right content. Here we're taking a look at our in-app storefront. So your location would have its own branded storefront with store details, reward program details, any available offers that you have running at the time, as well as copies of digital receipts that the customers can also take a look at online. It's very important to note that your customers do not have to download anything in order to participate in the rewards program. And that concludes our presentation for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and click on the question panel and submit them there. We did have one question. It says, when our customers share their email address or phone number with us, is it kept confidential or does AppCard sell this data? That is kept confidential. We don't share that information with anybody, so you can be rest assured that we won't sell that. Another question here, does AppCard work with version 8.7? Yes, we do work with version 8.7, so we are fully integrated in versions 8, 9, and Prism, preferably if you're using version 8.6 or above. Will this webinar be available to view later? Yes, we can definitely send this out to all the attendees after the call. So we typically also post it online. If you haven't received it, you can go ahead and email me. My contact information is right here, as well as if you wanted to set up a time for us to better get to know your business, and we'd be happy to share with you how we can actually set these up within your specific industry. How do we go about setting up a kickoff meeting? So our kickoff calls typically happen once you come on board and sign up with AppCard. As mentioned before, we do pair you with a full-time success manager, so you always have a direct contact here, which you can help you with the support. They'll help you with to basically identify what the best loyalty construct is in the beginning, what the best triggers are and stuff like that, but of course to support you throughout during these phases and how we can actually gather the information to then personalize the content down the line. So the answer would be to join AppCard, sign up with us, and then we can get you set up with your account manager so that you can have that kickoff meeting. I'll give you just one more minute just to see if anyone has any other questions. Well, thank you again, everyone, for being here today. We appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.